Okay. Well, I saw that it's 4 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Economic Improvement Corporation to order at 4:40. Invocation. Jim, could I once again call upon you to
sure can.
bring us together? Let us pray.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings of this day. Father, we thank you for the business that is before us, that we may edify and glorify your kingdom as we pursue this business. Father, we want to bless each one on this committee as we endeavor to do the will of the city. Father, we always edify, glorify Jesus Christ, our Savior. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Item 1 is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. Any citizen with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the Economic Improvement Corporation. No deliberation or action can be taken on these items because the Open Meetings Act requires an item to be posted on the agenda 72 hours before the meeting. Visitors are asked to limit their presentation to 3 minutes. Do we have any visitors or citizens that would like to address the board? All right. We'll move on to item 2, approval of the minutes. Have y'all had a chance to review the minutes from April 17th?
I make a motion we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor raise your right hand. Motion is unanimously carried. Item 3, report from Bryan O'Connor, KEDC. Welcome, Bryan.
Thank you. Very much appreciate the opportunity to address the board today. Thank you, Gary, for your swan song and for allowing me to be part of it. I put together a little PowerPoint presentation for you, and I'll briefly go through it and any questions that you may have. The first slide shows you really our airport. When I first got here 7 months ago this week.
Should we be seeing it?
No, that's
Okay.
why I provided the,
Just,
yeah.
it's on our packet. You got a packet.
So, my philosophy has always been you work from a position of strength. And when I first got here, I saw really 2 underutilized assets. I saw the airport, and I saw also Mooney International. In 2011, TxDOT did an economic impact study of the airport. It reported that there's 9,200 visitors that come in and out of the airport annually, $31 million in total economic impact, creating 355 jobs associated with the airport with a payroll of over $10 million. That's really significant. So in terms of looking at our airport, I had identified on the map, there's 5 properties there where we have infrastructure, and I've been going after business recruitment there. Now, the philosophy was to hopefully avail our airport of services that we are currently lacking, which are avionics, turbine repair, paint, and upholstery. Those are also services that Mooney International may also benefit from, were we to be able to bring those suppliers into the airport. Currently, Mooney even outsources its painting of airplanes to Hondo. So we were looking at not only increasing the value of our airport by building up our infrastructure, but also working with Mooney and supporting them, not financially, but rather some of the vendors that they work with, and actually make them a stronger company. Increase productivity and operating efficiencies with Mooney. This strategy may require the KEDC and others to be able to get truly actively involved, perhaps even on a speculative basis in terms of building that infrastructure. We may have to start to invest in some of the facilities that currently aren't there. I have been in discussion with quite a few folks, quite a few lenders and so forth to see how we can cobble this together, and hopefully I'll have something to you in short order.
Good.
By the way, that picture there is a conceptual plan that we had worked with Schreiner University just to be able to go on out and have something visually to be able to present to prospective clients that we would hope to bring into the airport. On the next page is Mooney International. As I said, I had started in late October. The CEO of Mooney had started sometime in August. He was an aerospace engineer with a PhD from Cambridge, very intelligent guy. We started discussions in terms of having them work with us to identify suppliers that we could work with. So we had their complete support. Mooney also had received FAA certification in March on the Ovation and the Acclaim planes. These are the carbon fiber planes and really the future of the airplane company. However, Mooney experienced a change in leadership in April. We're still waiting for a new CEO to come aboard, but we are actively pursuing those suppliers to be able to bring them into the airport. You'll also see a picture that I've put on one of the slides there. This is the kind of tech that I don't think a lot of people are familiar with. It's Mooney International working with Carter Aviation Technologies. They're doing the virtual takeoff and landing airplane. This is being tested in Dubai, but it's also being tested in Dallas at this time. So we would love to be able to bring that tech to Kerrville. The next slide that you have is really a kind of a new collaboration that we've started with Brinkman Commercial. The property over at the Airport Commerce Park, it's about 55 plus acres, is sitting vacant for about 15, 16 years. By pushing the airport, by pushing Mooney, we saw really this property across the other side of Highway 27 is really having a lot of potential for maybe a business and tech park. So we worked with Commercial Brinkman and we came up with a conceptual image of what we saw as being highest and best use of that property. Why this is particularly important is the property, there's approximately 12.5 acres that TxDOT owns over at the Airport Commerce Park. In the 2018-19 budget cycle, the state legislature will be allocating funding for TxDOT to build a new facility. We have approached TxDOT and said, look, we don't believe this is highest and best use for that property. So currently we're under discussions. We're working with Sherman and Company, Real Estate, Brinkman Commercial, and also TxDOT Real Estate Division to try to effect a swap of those properties to make sure that there is a highest and best use for that site. The next slide is, I guess, our marketing strategy has been a little bit effective. It conveys the vision that we see for that piece of property. We do have an international manufacturer that is interested at looking at at Kerrville. Understand also when companies typically come into your community, you're probably one of many that they're giving a look to. But I think it's a great opportunity. We brought the whole board together. Mr. Cochran will be participating in those discussions, confidential discussions at this point in time. Hopefully there is an interest on their part to come to our community. They do light manufacturing. They would bring anywhere from 150 to 200 jobs anticipated, and likely construction of anywhere from 150,000 square foot light manufacturing facility up to 200,000 square feet. So we'd probably be taking a look at maybe upwards of 30 acres that they could end up taking of that Airport Commerce Park property. We do have other sites, but we think that this, especially the potential for that Highway 27 corridor, and really the standard that was set by James Avery, is really kind of setting a direction for that entire corridor. The next slide. You know, this, you probably heard about this before. None of these ideas, I think, are a little bit new, which is good. I like to practice a lot of common sense, you know, not trying to be innovative for innovative's sake, but I think that we're bringing forward some really tested concepts. And one of those concepts is to better utilize craft agriculture within this community. A craft agricultural committee has been formed, has been meeting for quite a few months now. Ms. Patillo is part of it. Patrick Wilt of Grape Juice, people at Bending Branch, Kylie Miller over at Schreiner University. What we're looking at is the Highway 173 corridor. There are quite a few property owners there that have property that is ideal for grape growing and production in that corridor. They have the financial resources to do so, but perhaps lack the plan or the connections within the grape growing industry. We're looking at reaching out of state, but also East Texas growers that may want to come to Kerrville. Now this will also involve the retail segment as well. We're hoping that we can get some tasting rooms within our community. And we're also looking at a business incubator that would be centered upon craft agriculture. So we currently are under development with a marketing brochure, which is why I had shown you the color piece of marketing materials that we had put together. We did that in-house with the assistance of an intern with Schreiner University. So our cost was, other than in-house printing, was negligible. On the next slide, once again, another project. This goes back to really 2009, where we have been looking at a hotel convention center. I have been working with Charlie McIlvain on this, and also some Brinkman commercial, Ed Hamilton, and some other property owners to see whether or not we could actually end up moving this project forward. Recently, the communities of Fredericksburg, Bernie, and also Marble Falls have passed plans or approved plans to construct a hotel convention center. Frankly, other communities are making the decision for us because of our lack of inactivity. I'm hoping that we can at least move this forward, get it on the city manager's desk, perhaps take a look at a marketing or feasibility study, and that would be something I would hope to do in short order as well. The next slide, I've been working with city staff, staff of the Callow Theater and UTSA to take a look at performing an economic impact study. In fact, I've gotten the cost back to be able to do that just today. That's been forwarded over to City Hall. It's a little high, but we'll see if we can't negotiate it down. The point is really two different things, and I've talked with Jeff Brown regarding this, is to really take a look at the economic impact of their programming, but also take a look at their entire portfolio. What might have the biggest impact, not only in terms of box office receipts, but also upon the community as well. I would also then like to use that data that we get from this economic impact study for the Callow Theater to be able to project, if we do create other entertainment venues, what that impact may be as well. Typically, the arts are very understated or undervalued in terms of the economic impact that you have within the community. They're really kind of a loss leader. They're not going to end up paying for themselves, but the additional impact from how many heads in beds, how many people eat in restaurants and whatnot, it's that residual value that really makes it meaningful. And then on the last slide, boy, this is going to really involve some systemic change, to tell you the truth. This is probably my biggest challenge. I have been working with Alamo colleges to develop a survey of our business community. This would also include Chamber of Commerce members, the hospital, but also the manufacturing community. Take a look at the common threads in terms of the training needs and the anticipated needs of their workforce, and see whether or not we can't end up forming a training consortium. It would end up lowering the cost. Alamo colleges could come in, and we could actually end up doing a lot of training for multiple companies simultaneously. That's the intent. Also, I'm fortunate in the fact that I have the new school superintendent, Mark Faust, who is on my board. He has asked me to begin to take a look at their curriculum on the technical side through KISD and how that aligns with Alamo colleges. What we're hoping to get it to a point is that we can really kind of have somewhat of this seamless transition between academic agencies. Ultimately, we'd want to work with Dr. Zagarzo, who's the vice chancellor over at Alamo Colleges. He's very renowned in terms of creating some really very strong academic programming for the technical trades. So we're really kind of pushing that. But that will be long-term, but I think we have the players involved in it. I had also put together kind of a miscellaneous project list for you. In terms of the community survey, that's anticipation of the comp plan that's been occurring. Staff and I have been out at KISD and Schreiner University talking to the young people in terms of what they would like to see within the community. We have been working on our website, and that seems to be a little bit of a housekeeping issue. However, our website really didn't allow us to solicit engagement with the business community. We didn't have any feedback or any kind of request for information that they could make online with us. And we noticed in terms of our landing pages, typically when they hit our landing page, they leave. So I think, yeah, some of the stats are not very good. So we're actually in the throes of a complete revamp. Have been working with KPUB, looking at data centers and solar farms. They're really the lead on that, so I've been providing technical support. USDA, there's discussions in terms of hopefully some expansion of their labs. It's somewhat wishful thinking at this point in time, but I would like to encourage that where possible. CNM Precast, that's a real estate search. Transportation Planning Council, that is ongoing, and we'll see if it gets any traction. I have been working on devising a new economic development toolkit. Like I said, out of necessity, frankly, because of the airport. You know, we're going to have to start terms in getting together in terms of maybe spec buildings, getting involved in maybe having our own revolving loan program, granted hopefully administered by one of the local banks. But we need to tweak that toolkit a bit to better leverage our funding. So I appreciate the chance to address the board. Any questions offhand?
Questions?
Bryan, I do have a question.
Yeah.
My apologies. I think I was still looking at your convention center page, the diagram on there, just looking at it whenever you moved on to
Yeah.
your next slide on the Arcadia. So my focus was off a bit. If you could touch on the Arcadia again, please.
Well, UTSA, I asked them, and I asked the Callow Theater, look, we need to do an economic impact study to find out what the arts really have upon this community. Of course, I mean, this is empirical data, so we really need to survey the patrons that come to the Callow Theater. So we're in the process of working with UTSA. They would develop the survey, they would come in and administer it, and also they would end up doing the analysis. And that what they would tell us is that in terms of hopefully adult programming, theater, children's programming, maybe musicals, maybe plays, could end up breaking those things in by category and find out what the economic impact might be for each. And that's kind of a long-term strategy, but I at least want them to do kind of an overarching analysis of what the arts mean for the Kerrville community.
I guess my question, thank you for clarifying that, would be, is this some kind of a prerequisite study and analysis to be done prior to us continuing the conversation we started a few months ago with the city council and EIC together with our, the Callow Playhouse 2000 regarding the future of the Arcadia Theater?
No, actually, I didn't see it that way. I think typically the arts are always understated in terms of what their economic impact might be. Not that you couldn't end up using it to establish a baseline for, say, the Arcadia Theater and what it means for the community, then really use empirical data, as the theater got going, and then you would want to do your own surveys to see whether or not it were higher than lower than, or higher or lower than the benchmark. I think you would at least have a foundation and kind of early on in terms of what the potential impact may be for the Arcadia by using data from the Callow Theater.
So is that a parallel situation to what we're doing now? Because the mayor asked Playhouse 2000 to come up with some numbers for the next 3 years. And we did. And we are waiting now for a meeting with the mayor, the city council, the EIC, and the Playhouse 2000. And I'm just curious as to whether that's ongoing or is that dead. The Playhouse 2000 thinks it's alive. I'm on that board.
Well, I can tell you that I did just receive today the proposal from UTSA to do the study. As I recall, I think it's going to take about 12 weeks to be able to complete the work. I'm not sure. I assume you've talked to Mr. Brown. I don't know if he was generating some numbers internally or based upon best practices within the market. But I can tell you, UTSA does have the economic modeling to be able to do this and do this well.
We do have an upcoming meeting with Jeffrey Brown to talk through his pro forma and also talk about any next steps that we need to do to bring that group back together. I think we've got the numbers. We don't have the full impact, economic impact analysis, but we do have the pro forma ready to come back and really huddle those groups back together again.
Well, I thought so because we had a meeting last Monday and that was my understanding.
Yes.
So, excuse me, when is that meeting been scheduled already?
Yes, the internal meeting has. The groups coming together has not been
No,
scheduled.
so can you tell me when the internal meeting is scheduled for?
I believe we're scheduled for next week with Jeffrey Brown to brief Mr. McDaniel as well.
Who's going to be in that meeting?
I believe it's Jeffrey Brown and Mr. Huser and Mr. McDaniel, myself, and probably Bryan.
Any other questions for Bryan?
No.
Bryan, I just want to say it's been a pleasure serving on the KEDC with you. I'm very impressed with the work that you're doing and the quality of the work that you're putting out. So I just want to say personally thank you. You're doing a yeoman's job, and I'm impressed with the route that you're doing. I would also encourage you, and this is probably more on me than you, but I think it's important that at least quarterly you appear before this board and do us just a brief summary of what you're doing and where our money's being spent. So because since we continue to be the largest stakeholder in KEDC.
Well, one, I do appreciate the kind words, and yes, I would really appreciate the opportunity to come back quarterly. Yeah, and just the feedback's very important as well. And to you, Gary, thank you for serving on the board. The KEDC board, I mean, without their leadership and their direction, I mean, some really, really bright people on that board. The board is very engaged. They bring a lot of talents, and frankly, I'm made that much stronger because I can turn to Gary when I'm looking at the real estate market, when I'm dealing with Mooney International. I've got, aerospace engineers, and I've got pilots and so forth. So I've really got a lot of very talented people on there, and I thank you.
Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryan.
Okay, item number 4 is the monthly report, starting with the financials.
Good afternoon. This is the financial reports as of April 30th. In your operating fund, your opening balance was $2,451,826. You had income of $241,879, had expenditures of $101,211, leaving you an ending cash balance of $2,592,494. On your second page is the detail, which shows your annual budget, the current period expenses and activities, your year-to-date, and your remaining budget balances. On the third page is the sales tax revenue analysis comparing this year to last year. And year-to-date, you're at 6.2% over last year and at 1.46 budget to actual. The following page is your capital projects fund. You had no activity during the month. The cash balance in that is $3,727,211. On the following page, it gives you the breakdown of the projects of the funds that you've allocated for different things coming up. And this next month, we will be transferring some money out for distribution lines and for the tennis center. So you will see that in next month's report. At the bottom, it shows the remaining balance of the River Trail project, which you have $796,033 in that. And on the last page is your cash and investments. You will see that we still do not have your checking account at Wells Fargo finished. We got word Friday that they're ready to move forward. We had to furnish them some extra documentation because of some new regulations that they have. So you should see that next month.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions? Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra.
Okay, next item on the agenda. We have staff reports with the project update.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm just going to give you a brief 50,000-foot view of several of the critical EIC projects that we have for the city. River Trail, I think we may have told you last time, we had a critical land purchase in that western portion of the River Trail. Consequently, we had a slight realignment, and so we were working through the easements for several of the other pieces of the easements that we had already worked through, just kind of realigning those. We should hopefully have those wrapped up in about the next month. We do have a design engineering contract that has been let, and so that process is ensuing right now. One of the critical pieces of that is working with the Diedrich Center, but we have to get through the engineering first to see exactly kind of where it aligns on that piece. But moving very strongly on that.
Excuse me, is that
Yes, sir.
The design firm? Is that the same people that did our existing trail?
It is Mr. John Hewitt is going to do the piece going forward. I believe we previously had Freeze and Nichols that had done some of the other chunks. We felt like Mr. Hewitt's local knowledge would
Wonderful.
assist us in that
Love
regard.
keeping it local. That's great.
Yes, sir. Sports complex, we are in the process of hopefully seeding this week. Things are progressing nicely. We've got a nice root zone mix that's been topically put down over those fields. We are doing some watering. You're seeing some watering out there right now. They're not watering their seeds. They're just trying to mostly keep the dust down. We haven't had much rain, unfortunately. Good for construction, bad for growing things. So DBAT is moving along strong. That building is going up. In the process of kind of working through that foundation issues. It's progressing out there. We've got most of the smaller buildings other than DBAT are now complete. We're on track as long as we get a good grass grow in for soccer to be complete in the August time frame. Baseball to be done just a little bit later in the fall. It's really coming along nicely. Reuse distribution, our contract has been let. They have been doing the soil testing and boring process. They're going to really be kicking up a lot of work in the June time frame. They're kind of doing all the preliminary steps right now. We have had most of the equipment delivery. The 30,000 linear feet of purple reuse distribution pipe has been delivered. So excited about that. Tennis Center RFQ is out on the street. We're getting questions from several top-notch firms, so we're working through those and getting those reposted. We should have complete applications by the end of this month. Downtown Streetscape, you guys had an extensive presentation last month. We are working with Mr. Peter Lewis to do what you asked, and that's to get some tighter estimates on some of the pieces that he has worked and put forward based off the feedback you guys provided. Be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
I have one on
Yes,
the
sir.
reuse lines. So does that require the pond to be built in order for the distribution into reuse, or is it similar to what's being done today?
The reuse distribution system as designed, all of those distribution lines will be fed from the new pump station and the pond. So those distribution lines will not be able to be accommodated just off of the existing storage facility.
So we have to have a new storage facility.
That's correct. A critical piece of infrastructure for the reuse distribution system to work.
Yeah, my understanding is both at Shriner and River Hill, those lines will be built or terminated at those locations, pending those areas building their own storage facilities. Is that correct?
Yes, they each have a certain period of time that they have their own smaller storage facilities that they have to be built and basically receive the product at the time that we're able to deliver them the product.
Okay, is that the same with the sports complex?
The sports complex, no, we don't have any agreement with ourselves from the city perspective. We're ready to use that water as soon as it's able to hit
It won't
there.
have a storage pond, it'll just be pumped directly
It
from
will have a storage pond.
It does
Yes,
that.
sir.
That's what
Yes,
I-
sir.
I
There's just
didn't-
not a separate agreement,
Okay.
but it does have a planned storage pond for that area.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Buddy?
The line to Comanche Trace, how does it cross the river?
So we actually have to go on, kind of backing up a little bit, we're on the west side of Loop 534 as it crosses 27, and then we actually go downriver slightly, crossing under the bridge there, and then it will actually go about 5
Attached to the
feet.
bridge, those pipes are gonna attach to the bridge?
No, ma'am. It's actually there's an existing walking bridge that we'll be taking out, and then the proposed lines will be about 5 feet over the typical water level. But it will be going over the.
So it's an
So they'll be above ground,
Yes, ma'am.
we'll see them,
That's correct.
and they'll be about,
About
How
five,
far?
about
5 feet
5
above
feet
the
over the
river?
existing river. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
and the walking bridge will go away?
That's correct. That's correct. That bridge across there, essentially, it's got two pieces of infrastructure that go across there right now. It traps a lot of debris and
Sure
sediment and other
does.
things. It's
That's
quite
a
an eyesore.
great
So,
improvement, but
yes, we included that within this distribution project.
known that was part of it.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a great idea.
Yes, ma'am.
And those, so, looks like there's a water line that is attached to that walking bridge or something.
Yes, ma'am. There's two existing lines. There's actually one water line and one sewer line that's not being utilized at all right now. The water line is being utilized. We're going to actually upsize that water line.
Just tell me the purple pipe's not gonna be stuck up at 5 feet in the air, though. Surely it'll be cased in something.
They will absolutely be cased. Yes. Yes.
So the old water line, will it be up above too? Will it be raised up?
That's correct. The old water line will be upsized to a new water line. It will help us with some of the pressure systems that we have across the river and help kind of equalize and balance some of those.
So we're gonna see two pipelines
That's correct.
elevated above the river.
It'll be all
And then-
encased within one pipeline, though.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
see.
Yes, ma'am.
In one casing,
That's right.
pretty close to the bridge.
Pretty close. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, EJ.
Thanks, guys.
Item 5, consideration of possible action, economic development grant agreement between Fox Tank Inc. and City of Kerrville, Texas EIC. Mr. Fox, I think I see you back over there. Welcome. Would you like to address the board, or do you have anything else you'd like to add other that's in your letter?
I will be happy to. I didn't just answer any questions. but-
Sure. Would you come on up? I think there's probably going to be a few questions.
Sure.
Thanks for coming down today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Just briefly reiterate or take me back through your letter, and I've read it multiple times, so I think I'm pretty familiar with it, but we all understand that there's been some discrepancy or whatever between the two agreements and kind of some uncertainty in regarding that. I think we're all on the same page on that. Have y'all all got a copy of the letter, is that correct, from Mr. Fox? Okay, I just want to make sure. And jump in anytime if y'all have questions. I just had a couple things. I noticed that you said you now have the ability to decide which of our manufactured products are built at which plants. How many plants are you still operating?
I have two. I have one in Albany, and then I run two here.
Okay, so-
Well, there's three, but two locations.
Okay, all right.
The bulk of what we've done just historically has come through Albany. As an example, we'll pay the state $120,000 this month on the 20th for April sales tax, as an example. And now that I have taken over, which occurred, I think you know, back at the end of October, my father retired and I bought him out. And what I have the ability to do now is I can make the decision as to what makes the most sense. And since we're mainly going to the Permian Basin with everything that we do nowadays, it's really about the same as far as a financial impact on my company, whether I build it in Kerrville or whether I build it in Albany. The Kerrville facility has the ability to build larger tanks, and so that's a lot of what we focused on. But what I've started to do is shift more and more employees, just the types of products that we manufacture to Kerrville. But just so you understand, many of our customers, or some of them, are tax exempt. One of our major customers, in fact, just informed us of that, and that was one that was creating a lot of sales tax in Albany, but they just sent us a resale certificate recently. But since that happened, things are very dynamic right now, and things are happening fast, and I'm about to sign a deal with 2 major oil companies that will be taxable, and then I will decide where it's best to manufacture those products as far as, you know, where the sales tax is allotted and where it goes. And that's just something I just threw out there to, you know, kind of add that, you know, the future looks bright as far as what our contributions are going to be. And that's all I was just trying to make the point of, is that we've turned the corner on a very dark time, because, you know, 2015 and 2016 were very difficult, and we had to batten the hatches down. And the fact that we've continued to maintain the relationships with many of these oil companies and stay in business when many of our competitors did not, in addition to the fact that some of the other tank companies, one major in fact has been in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they're in sort of a chaotic state, it's created a very unique opportunity for Fox Tank Company, and we're 3 months behind right now, and I'm trying to expand as cautiously but as rapidly as I can to accommodate what's coming up. And we have some really good opportunities, and the fact that I think what you'll see over the next, certainly the latter half of this year, will be a big difference in you know, the kind of tax revenues even that we're generating for the state of Texas and the city of Kerrville. So that's just kind of what I was referring to as far as what I thought our contribution, what some of our contributions were, and how they're going to increase going forward.
And I'm just curious, because again, referring back to your letter, you say, if I decide to build these products in Kerrville, what's going to be the driving force in your decision-making process?
Well, it's more so just the fact that if I want to shift resources from one place to the other, I have to make the determination, you know, how much sense it makes as far as facility-wise. I get to the point where people start running over one another almost, and so now I have to evaluate what the opportunities are for me, labor-wise, whether I can start a second crew, and maybe we can run, you know, 4 nights a week and run a night shift, which is about the way I'm leaning right now. Those are kind of the decisions I have to decide and make. And it's a bit unique or it's changed somewhat from when we first came here in the first few years. And that is the fact that we now seem to have an abundance of people wanting to move to Kerrville and take jobs here. That really wasn't the case back during the boom of 13 and 14, because they could make way too much money south of San Antonio. And that really hasn't taken back off yet, quite honestly. The Eagle Ford, it costs more to get it out of the ground still than it does out west. So we have a real opportunity. And so when I say I make that decision based on a number of factors, but one being, can I get the people to do it? Can a night shift be productive enough to warrant what I'm doing? Because just experience tells me, and it's kind of dependent on who you've got running that thing, because whether it's me or my son or whoever, we're not there watching them all day long. And also the fact, just to make sure that if I get overwhelmed with big tank business, which in most cases will be taxable as well, it'll be a win-win for both places. I may have to continue to build a lot of the 500 barrel tanks and things in Albany just because of, just because of lack of facilities, so to speak. So those are some of the determining factors I have to make. But the point I was trying to make with that was that at every opportunity, I will try to benefit the Kerrville operation. This is where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the focus of Fox Tank Company has now shifted.
Okay.
It's shifted from Albany,
Sure.
quite frankly, to Kerrville because I'm here. And it just makes more sense. So I brought all of the clerical here. I brought all of the, I've brought in an in-house server. We've done a lot of different things to eliminate some out-of-town accounting jobs and things like that. And those are the kind of things that we're doing every day now, and we'll continue to do throughout this year, I'm sure. So that's really more what I meant is just when it makes sense to do so, I will bring jobs to Kerrville rather than to Albany, and I'll bring taxable items to Kerrville.
We like both those.
Well, I didn't want that to sound, the way it kind of maybe
And I
came
wouldn't-
off. I wasn't.
I wasn't trying to hold you to it. I
Yeah,
just,
I understand, but
you answered my question because I'm
Yeah.
curious what
Well-
drove that decision-making
Yeah.
process, and that's a good.
I mean,
answer.
quite honestly, I can build a 500 barrel tank in Kerrville and sell it in Kirk County, or I can build that tank in Albany and sell it in Shackelford County. I mean, that's kind of my call. And it again, all those factors determine what makes the most sense for Fox Tank Company to do. But quite frankly, I'm more inclined now to shift things here. I can keep my eyes on it better. And believe you me, it's not just the fact that I'm trying to butter anybody in this room up. It's the fact is, it's important that I keep my eyes on it and I learn it. And my son reminds me every day of the things that go on 300 miles from here that I'm not watching. So those are some of the determining factors. So things are fortunately looking up. So
Good. Well, I'm glad they're looking in the right
Yeah.
direction. Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Fox? Anybody?
I do. This is more, you've just been speaking operationally and vision-wise for operations. So this is diving down a little bit more into the minutia of your letter on the paragraph that's talking about your 2016 numbers of employees and how you later realized that some of the commission folks were not included in those original numbers.
Right.
And then you broke it out. So I just needed some clarification. You ended up saying rather than the 84, you would say it's now 92, and then you talk about that there were 5 people in one location and 3 other people in another
Right.
location. And so my question is simply, those 2 different locations you're mentioning, are those both the two Kerrville, or does
No.
that include Albany? It was one of those,
They're-
Albany.
one of each, and they're small independent contractors that depend entirely on
Yeah, I understand the entirety of their
everything I
livelihood.
do. So I sort of added that in to try to understand the spirit of the thing, and quite frankly, when that first thing was sent in, I just had somebody fill it out and I signed it. I should have spent a lot more time looking into every aspect of it. I mean, I have salespeople that strictly work on commission, but they are some of my higher paid employees in the company, and they don't make anything from anyone else. So they're my employees. They work for me. And they weren't included. And there were a number of different things included. So that's kind of where the variances came and all of that, is when I really dug into it and said, this is what I consider to be my employees, in addition to the ones that are out there working for $20 an hour. That's what I was getting at. But one of those facilities is outside of Albany, yes.
Okay, which would that be, the one
The
with the
5
5?
employees.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. And I don't know if I brought this up before, and I don't really know what it matters. This is a little more complicated sometimes than just black and white. I will bring dozens of employees, I may have mentioned this to you before, and put them in hotels in Kerrville for extended periods of time.
Okay.
I've done that for the last 4 years. But they don't have a legal residence here, but I don't count them, so I don't count them. But those are the other things that just, I think, bring additional sort of income dollars into Kerrville that aren't really mentioned or sort of identified.
A couple of questions, Mr. Fox. In one, I mean, this is, it's no fun for you, it's no fun for us. I mean, we'd love to have this thing resolved, and I think we're going to try to come up with some sort of a resolution on that. one of the issues is gonna be reporting. And I think I'm understanding, you would like to report one time at the end of the year, is that correct?
That's the way it was just laid out to me from the start.
Okay.
I don't mind doing whatever. You
Okay.
know. That's just the way it was laid out to me.
Going back to the high number for the whole year, right? Not necessarily who's employed on 12.
Well, I think that's one of the things we have to work out, but yeah, I think, you know, if you wanna look at the high number for the year, yeah.
It was
I-
laid out,
I just-
how many employees I had on December the 31st every year. I didn't set it up that way, you know. It's
Yeah,
just the
I
way it was
mean,
laid out to
and
me.
obviously we, you know, the agreement, that's not how it reads, but I'm not trying to get into what's in the past. I'm trying to look forward to the future and how
Sure.
we're gonna resolve this.
Sure.
Because I was going through, and it's been several years since I went back through the agreements and reread them and noticed those. And I think that's one of the things we're gonna have to, you know, at least get clarification, so we don't get back into this situation of what happened in 14 or 15
I would
or
appreciate
16.
that greatly.
Let's get it resolved and moving forward. In Article 3, it talks about, is there any proposed merger or consolidation of Fox with any third party or affiliated with Fox? Is there anything, negotiations? That's just one of the things that if you are in a proposed merger or consolidation, you're supposed to let the EIC know.
No,
Nothing, there's no,
no.
okay.
The only thing I've done is, I'm working with a group to help them with their tank company in Luling, but that's just my oversight of what, it's a completely,
but-
it's not,
You're
they're
not
not
so-
affiliated with each other in any way. It's a separate corporation.
Okay,
I'm
that's
the
fine. I just-
CEO now of that too, but I spend about 1/10 of my time with that, so.
Okay, okay. Let's see if there's any other questions I had. Well, does the rest of the board have any other questions or comments?
No, I don't, just saying.
Mr. Fox, what I'd like to see happen is we're gonna go into executive session and we're gonna try and come up with a proposal. We've got your proposal, we're gonna discuss that.
Okay.
You know, we're gonna talk to staff and get Mr. Hayes to address it with us. I would really hopeful in the next 30 days that we can come back to you and say, here's the revised agreement, read it carefully.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure you're in agreement with it, that we all understand it. I won't be here to do that. I think there's enough members of the board that will be able to carry that forward
All right.
with the new board. But I really am hopeful and optimistic that we can get this worked out to everybody's agreement. and benefit.
I'd love to, because I have
Yeah, I don't want
plenty of stuff on my plate. so.
if I, you know, someday if I ever come back on the board again, I hope we're not sitting down and talking about the economic impact of.
I'm not sure that I was the first one to kind of go through all this. I
To some
sometimes
extent.
feel like maybe I was a little bit of the experimental
To some extent.
kind of test run on this thing, but there were a lot of promises made to me that never materialized, and so just so you understand, I love being here. We've been very blessed, and we're glad. We're up over 100 employees now, and we're rolling again, and our payroll's $100,000 a week right now, and so things are really going well again, but that's the way they were before.
I know.
And I'll reiterate, we had plans to be here, but we didn't have plans on being here. We were over near Comfort in Kirk County, and we were ready to start building. So I was kind of tugged away from that a little bit. So, there's a little two sides to each story a little bit, and I know you know that.
No question about that. And that's
Okay.
why I say I wish I had another 30 days on the board so that I could see this resolved.
We can make
but-
it happen.
No, we can't make it happen. I'm sorry. But anyway, I do appreciate your time.
Well, absolutely.
We're-
I'm available if anybody wants to talk to me.
We're gonna give it serious consideration.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't here.
Okay, item 5 is executive session. I would entertain a motion if anybody's so inclined.
So
Okay.
moved.
I have a motion that we'll go into executive session. I believe that'll be under section 551.071, consultation with attorney,
And
and 087.
Yeah.
Okay.
second.
Go ahead and get out and go.
Is that your motion?
Yes,
I
yes.
have I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Same
So
sign.
at 4:49, we'll adjourn the meeting. Okay. We're gonna come come back into session at 5:20. There's no action or votes taken during executive session. Bryan and Nathan, what we would like, and I hope I get this right. We're gonna work out something. What we would like for the next step, I guess, from our standpoint, would be for Bryan to work with you in getting the actual employment numbers for 15 and 16. And I encourage you to do that as very expediently as possible. This board, as you see it today, will no longer exist at the end of this month. If we can get those numbers in a very timely manner, we'll call a special session of this board and see if we can get this resolved before, because these are the players that understand what's going on.
If I can interrupt, we have those ready for you now. My office manager
Okay.
spent a week detailing everything, pie charting everything.
Bryan, what I would,
That's all prepared.
Bryan, what I would ask is you get those numbers as quickly as
I should
possible
run with
and
them.
get those to Mr. McDaniel
Okay.
and sit down with him, and he's going to run kind of a spreadsheet for us.
Okay.
And then if we can get that done,
Yeah.
if we have enough time, we'll have the special session, and we'll see if we can get something back to you.
And I apologize, I should have been more diligent about that from the start. I should have,
The blame falls on both of us.
Both sides.
We should have been hounding you for them, and we weren't, so
okay, all right.
fair enough.
But yeah, that's, we can have that ready.
Okay,
this
Mark,
week.
does that pretty much handle it? Okay.
Fine with me.
Mike, you okay with all that?
Yes, sir.
Any other comments, questions? Anybody else from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 5:22.
Okay, that's it for yourself, buddy.
Well, my short is reading.